God of the universe, maker of the stars. Who am I that you would know my name?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Life on Purpose, episode number 101. We have passed the centennial mark
There you go.
with the original Mike Clayton, myself, Alex Stiles, and the new kid on the block, Jared Bain. Welcome, everyone. How are y'all, gentlemen?
I'm okay.
I'm good.
Okay, we're present. Yeah, we're here.
So, Jared, we hear that you got some counsel on something that you never thought you'd get, is that people told you to talk more.
I know. I mean, they usually want to sit down and shut up.
Well, I mean, they don't know what it's like when to get in a room with you and actually engage, and all of a sudden you take off on this area, and I'm like, I don't know what the guy is talking about anymore.
Most people don't know what I'm talking about. It's okay.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Hey, I got a question from a listener. Okay, one that I'm kind of close to. In fact, I'm actually married to her. Kathy wanted me to. She said, I know the answer to this question, but I'd like to hear the answer actually from Jared. We talk about this word agnostic. Okay, so what really is an agnostic, or is it there really a definition for it? Is it a broad brush or a fine line?
Well, the word atheist typically means someone who is against the notion of there being a God. They are like anti-theist.
Okay.
An agnostic would be someone who just goes, I don't know. I'm indifferent to it. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
So if I went to, and Alex, I want you to expound on that too, because I think you've got some insights there from some of your study. There's twice in the book of Psalms, it says, a fool has said in his heart, there is no God. So could we define an atheist as one that says there is no God, and agnostic is one that says there's no God for me? Would that be fair, Jared?
Oh, that'd be pretty fair.
Okay. Alex?
I'd go with that. An atheist, in a manner of speaking, has actually dedicated themselves very strongly to this idea of God. They're very, very dedicated to the anti-God idea. Incredibly passionate about it. You get someone who is an agnostic, and they're like, well, maybe there is and maybe there's not, but I don't want it to be a part of my life.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, which one of those is worse?
I often feel that apathy is worse than any strong emotion, and that's not necessarily always true. I'm not trying to make an absolute statement, but I generally find that apathy, it's lukewarm. It's not hot or cold. Can't really do anything with it either way. But that person that is strongly, even that atheist that feels very strongly about something, at least they feel something, at least they've dedicated to it. And then you have an emotion which you've bounced off, which you can talk about. Something.
Okay. Jared?
Broke up a little bit. What was the last thing?
Don't kill, and then we went, and then there was war. Like, well, then you got something to work off of, right? Then you can say, well, we go into this, it's actually the commandment is thou shalt not murder. You got emotion to work off of, right? You got someone that's willing to emotionally make statements, to ask questions, to be dedicated to something. And atheists are usually, many of them are quite willing to talk about, or at least have emotional that will drive them to speak about it. Apathetic? I don't really want to talk about it. Like,
Okay.
What do you have to work with there?
Yeah,
Not
you broke up
much.
a little bit, but go ahead, Jared. See if you can pull that out there.
Yeah, so you have a lot of atheists like Christopher Hitchens, who can be summed up as there is no God and I don't like him. But then you have exactly, yeah. But then you have the kind of agnostic who's like, well, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. And they're just kind of like, nah, doesn't matter right now.
So that agnostic person tends to be more of a pacifist, whereas a an atheist would be more engaged. Would you see more of a
Oh,
complacent, passive lifestyle overall with somebody that's agnostic?
yeah, the agnostics are pretty much more like the I live my truth, you live your truth kind of nonsense versus the actual atheist who's more like, oh no, no, no. I'm going to tell you what the truth is, and the truth is you're wrong.
Hmm.
At least for having put some.
Hey, Alex, we're having a little difficulty with your signal down there. We'll catch you. Hopefully, it'll catch back up with you. Let me give you something. I was talking with someone the other day, and this is kind of a an agnostic for the most part. I would say complacent toward the presence of God. And we were talking about, they actually asked me, well, do you believe in life after death? And I said, I used Alex's term, absolutely. And, but, and they said, well, this other person who is who says they're an atheist says, oh, that's just garbage. There's nothing. Okay. And this person is a scientist. And so how can a scientist and I'll go to both of you on this one. How can a scientist be an atheist? Is that really possible?
Oh, I think deep down they kind of have a nagging feeling that they're wrong. And if you look at people like Stephen Hawking, they had to say some really dumb things like philosophy is dead in order to get their, science to make sense. And it's like, well, what's the P in your PhD stand for, Mr. Hawking? It's like, because they know that their scientific worldview is philosophically bankrupt.
I love that. I'm going to use that.
Please do.
Okay.
So I find that many times, yeah, absolutely, many scientists will try to use their science against faith. But I also blame, to some extent, I put some blame on Christians for not being able to invest themselves in science. All right, like I had this interesting explanation. I love this explanation when it's called the distant light problem. We know the speed of light is constant. I think we're up to about 8 billion light years away for the farthest star we've found, which means if we had a fixed light traveling at a set speed, it would take 8 billion years for us to be able to see that star. Okay, I don't know. People think that we argue against science in order to believe in faith. Well, I don't. I open up Bereshit, Genesis, and I go to chapter 1, and it says he made point B, me, the earth, pardon me, point B first, and then he made all the light, and then he made point A, the star that the light came from. So I have no problem with the fact that light would take 8 billion years to get from that star to here. I don't argue that basics of the scientist. What I go is then I interpret my science through the lens of how God tells me he made the earth. It tells me that he made all of the light first, and
Hmm.
then he put the stars out there. So, and that's just one of the many problems that gets used. We'd have to go very deep into some evolutionary science, but evolution, there are holes in the Big Bang theory as well.
Hmm.
Temperature of the universe doesn't line up.
Hmm.
Temperature of there's hot, cold areas that shouldn't be, that don't line up according to the explosion that they call the Big Bang.
Hmm.
Um, I feel that many scientists are operating on this process of garbage in, garbage out. Right, that's one of the basic rules of science, right? You put false data in, you get false results out the other end. I don't argue with their math in the middle. And I think that's where we confuse a lot of people, is that I'm somehow arguing, oh, light doesn't travel at the same speed. Or I'm arguing carbon atoms don't decay. or things like that. I don't argue with the math in the middle. I say you're putting false data in the beginning, therefore you're getting false answers out the other end.
Well, what's really interesting is if you look at like Greek and Roman, science of the ancient world, most people thought the universe was eternal. And then when they even came out with the Big Bang Theory, suddenly we believe the universe had a beginning. It's like, well, it took you about 2,000 years to catch up with the Bible, so good for you.
hmm
Okay. Point taken there, Jared. Um, Now, correct me, guys. You both of you have a lot more education in this than I do. The only advantage I have is I've been around longer to pick up things. So, isn't the definition of science being able to witness something and then having to recreate it? Don't you have to have the ability to recreate it and observe it for it to be science?
The scientific process. Scientific process is I see something, I develop a hypothesis as to why I think it's true, and then I have to test that hypothesis by seeing the same thing work over and over. If it's correct under a few different times, I can call it a theory. And if I'm going to get it from a theory into a scientific law, then that theory then has to play out exactly the same way under a wide variety of circumstances over a long period of time. So I can't get something right once and say I have a scientific law. I get to get it right over and over and over, and I have to observe it and get the same predictable results over and over. Yes, that is the scientific method, and it is the foundation of modern science.
So then evolution cannot be called science.
I absolutely agree with your statement there.
Okay.
We have
And
never seen it. We've never seen it.
yeah. And the only thing that we can call science would be creation because we have writing believed to be writing of one that observed it.
Oh, by my, yes, like I have a first-hand account. Now that gets dismissed. I understand this, but from my viewpoint, yeah, I've got a first-hand account from the guy that was there,
Mm-hmm.
from the head scientist, no less.
The one that invented
Well,
it. Go ahead, Jared.
well, to Alex's point, about having to recreate it, the current scientific model for the Big Bang, for to get uniformity of nature out of, chaos, for, everything to emerge from nothing, it's a 1 in 10 to the 60th power chance for things to just
Mhm.
fall right. So to put that in terms you could, visualize, imagine you have one red marble in a bag of 10 to the 60th power blue marbles. That bag of marbles has to be bigger than the known galaxy.
Okay.
And you'd
So,
have to reach into that bag
and
of
grab
marbles
that,
that's
yeah,
and grab the one marble.
yeah. And
And
then
that
you
is
have
the
to,
chances of it happening.
then you have to repeat it to prove it.
Yes. Yes. There's one thing I always want to go by, and this is you ask people what happened before the Big Bang. This is when it gets interesting. You ask him what happened. Oh, okay. Look, Jared's enjoying this. Okay. You guys need to watch the YouTube just to get this
Yeah.
his face. Okay. You ask him what happens before the Big Bang, and they talk about it being the anomaly. So they try to say that, the Big Bang, everything spreads outward with the Big Bang. Gravity eventually takes over and pulls everything back in. Everything collapses in on itself. We create an anomaly. It all blows up again. That's their idea. While the understanding is they still haven't actually given us a beginning, right? They still haven't explained where everything came from, like what created everything before the Big Bang. That's a problem. But then the very idea, what I'm going for is this anomaly, all right, where everything collapses in on itself. The very definition of an anomaly is when the laws of science break down. So the evolutionists' method to explain creation without God, to explain creation only using science, is to say that science broke.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking actually tried to answer that age-old question, how do you get something from nothing? I think it was him and Lawrence Krauss did a book together, and Hawking said, because laws like gravity exist, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing. And you're like, time out, Mr. Hawkins. You're presupposing the existence of gravity in order to create gravity.
Right.
How much sense does that make?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me throw the proverbial, well, to use an evolutionary term, a monkey wrench in the toolbox. Okay, just I mean,
He
just
had to. He
yeah,
had to, y'all. We're
just
sorry. We're
had to go
sorry.
there. Okay, so let's say that for the most part, that we can sit here and we can have this conversation that has been had for hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever, and I can definitively, without a doubt, totally, completely prove that there is a God. Is that going to change somebody's lifestyle and behavior in the end?
Not
If they
necessarily.
desire to be an atheist or an agnostic, is the proof of that God going to change them?
No. There's one atheist, I can't quote which one it is. They asked him, "Why don't you believe in the God?" And he finally, and they're frustrated because it'd been a long conversation, he finally answered with, "Because I don't want the universe to be that way." And maybe Jared remembers which famous atheist quote that was. I don't remember who it was. Um,
No, I
but you
don't.
can't do,
Oh,
But
good.
yeah.
Wow. I'm like, oh, I hope
but
Jared doesn't know that.
no, but I would add, I did just see Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day trying to say, well, I'm okay with the God of enlightened people who see him as manifestation of the laws of physics, but I'm not okay with this notion of there being like a personal God that tells us how to act. It's like, so you're okay with deism, but not theism. So you're okay
Right.
with the notion of God as long as it doesn't tell you how you should live your life. That's like
Now,
not
if
a
that's not
scientific
a
objection. That's just an emotional objection. Like it's just
right, that is an
it's a
absolutely
terrible argument,
emotional
man.
human objection. Yeah, absolutely a human objection there. Is there anything more human than I want the world to be
Yeah.
different because it hurts
Or
my feelings the way it is?
I think it was Peter Singer who was like, "What evidence do you need for, Yeshua?" And he was like, "I wouldn't even believe in him if he appeared to me personally. I would just say I was having an illusion." You're just like, "Okay, so no evidence at all. Gotcha."
So a fool is said in his heart. And by the way, this sign that I have behind me, it's hard to stop stupid. In those, if you look at the word fool in Scripture, it can also be translated stupid. Okay. So here's my point. Here's my point in this is if we cannot argue someone into the kingdom, why are we trying to argue people into the kingdom?
That one deserves an absolutely.
Okay.
You need to copyright
I
that.
I know Kathy's counting them, so I have to be spare with them now. But no. Uh but you're absolutely right on this. Okay? I've never been argued. Like, you want to drag me kicking and screaming into something? What's the point? You have to be a willing part. Drafting works if we're in the army and you want me to dig a ditch, but it doesn't work for a lifestyle
hmm
or for eternity.
Okay, Jared.
It depends on because I know there's a lot. I just remember hearing this from a guy the other day who used to go to church
Okay.
and he used to ask, questions and nobody could answer his questions. And because they weren't able to give a reasoned answer, he just kind of stopped and now he's agnostic or atheist.
Okay.
So I
There's
don't
a
know if you can
Mhm.
argue someone into the kingdom, but I think at the same time you could use these kind of arguments to help keep people in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I absolutely agree with that. One my big thing I find is that your God is not afraid of questions, okay?
Right.
You can read it from Genesis to Maps. He never struck anyone down for asking questions, not once. Defying him? Yeah. Blatantly disobeying his laws? Absolutely. Asking him questions? Like, you've got people even asking him straight up, "God, why are you doing this?
hmm
Why are you doing it?" He never struck him down. Many times he answers. So I believe, in some ways, I think Christians are afraid. I think we have a culture where it feels like, at least, that all of the scientists are against God. And so then people are afraid to use the scientific method or a scientific curiosity and ask, what do I believe? I think Christians need to, this belief isn't a passive process. I think you absolutely should know what you believe and be able to answer it. And that doesn't mean being able to quote every single, the whole Bible by memory. It doesn't mean that you can even like pull the exact verse, but you should be able to speak to what you believe and know what you believe.
For sure.
Okay.
And then we should embrace that amid those, you should also know people and we should know each other's strengths, right? I want to, you know, ask him. I need to ask somebody about the meanings of the items kept within the Ark of the Covenant between you, me, and Mike. I'm going to ask Mike, right? So I'm serious in this when I say that sometimes it's very much not about what you know, but about who you know. So if someone has a question that I don't know, I need to have people with me that I can say, let me give you Mike Clayton's number, and he can answer this question for you. You have questions about, you're a Mormon and you want to ask questions about me. Well, I've got zero, like in my geography, right where I'm at, there are no Mormons. Okay. I have zero interaction with this belief system. I wouldn't know how to answer somebody's questions who was a Mormon, and I could answer to what I believe. But if they have specific questions there, I should be like, hey, I need to connect you with this fellow believer here who can answer your questions.
So should we be looking for people in our sphere of influence that should, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. There are, as you guys have described, there are those people out there that are looking for an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I find many of them are those that have been hurt by religion. Would
Yes.
you, Jared, you're nodding your head there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of people who have kind of a emotional baggage where they've been hurt, or maybe it's people who just maybe they think God doesn't love them, but there's always a heart problem that starts. And then they kind of like, go watch, several hours Neil deGrasse Tyson on YouTube or something. And then they start, having the intellectual barrier. So
Mm-hmm.
that starts as a heart
Mm-hmm.
problem, then it becomes an intellectual problem.
Okay. So should we be looking for people in our sphere of influence that are, and really categorizing them? And, there's a moment in time for, I believe, for everybody. There was for me, Alex. I think there was for you, Jared. I believe I really believe there was for you. Okay, that moment in time, you had to wait for. Okay, it's like, uh, is it if you have somebody that's asleep and you wake them up out of a dead sleep, they're probably not into a conversation, are they? But if you let them wake up, and then they can start to look at their surroundings. So should we not treat people around us, look for those that are seeking, and don't get into arguments that because an argument is only going to solidify a person in their so-called beliefs. Are you able to argue somebody into truth?
No, because then you get this is where this foundation of arguing somebody in the truth is where you get this nonsense about my truth and your truth. You got to have somebody willing to seek truth, who's seeking, who's willing to ask the question, what is truth?
Okay. Are we doing more harm arguing with people than simply walking away from them?
I would say yes, if you're, and understand that we are in, I think we established, I want to say we are not talking about refuting someone's questions when someone says, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson said, what do you say to that? That person then is seeking me my answers for that.
Mhm.
And as long as we have and counter each argument. But if the person is angrily yelling at me, arguing them, am I going to get angry and yell back? I think it was Ryan Cribbs said, "Find me the verse where Paul reached over and slapped somebody with a Torah scroll." Right? It didn't happen. Okay. Yes, if you're in a confrontational setting of it, you should absolutely end the conversation and walk away because that's not what you were called to be. You were called to be harmless as doves.
Mm-hmm. Why is it serpents, by the
And
way?
wise as serpents, both, right? You were called to both.
Well, the other thing is too, I think we lose sight of am I me winning this person over, or is he winning this person over?
Damn.
You're just a vessel for him to work through. You're
Yes.
not doing it yourself.
I also find it very interesting that over and over and over, we're compared to farmers planting seeds. It almost never talks about us being the one that reaps, that
Mm-hmm.
collects.
Mm-hmm.
You may never see the efforts of the seeds that you plant. So it's
Oh,
not, you don't feel like, yeah, so like it's not like you have to be like, I talked to this person yesterday. They asked me questions about God. I answered them the best I could, and nothing happened. Well, I stuck that tomato seed in the ground, and nothing happened for a long time too. That's
it's
how it works.
the old adage of there's a bamboo plant somewhere, and I think you put it in the ground, the seed, and it takes like 30 years. And I'm just getting, this is way back in my memory banks. Okay, and I've slept a few times since this one, but it takes like years for it to spring forth, but then it grows like an inch a day.
Mm.
You know, and I can attest to this, Alex, that I still to this day, and this is not about me, but I've been doing this for you know, upwards of 30 something years now. And it's not unusual for me to get a phone call or an email or a letter to our office and say, I was in a meeting with you 20 years ago and you said this. I'm like, I don't remember the meeting, much less that I said something at it. Okay, but that was that thing, that seed. Are we willing to just go out there and plant those seeds, or do we want the notch in our belt? The old notch in your holster thing of how many people you've killed, which is maybe more true in religion than people get tired of people handing them tracts.
Yeah, I tried doing it. I got tired of handing them out. I didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything.
And the thing you got to understand too with people is in a lot of cases, you need to build a relationship. I forget the man's name, but David Wood, he's a Christian apologist to Muslims. He was saying that it takes about an average of 7 years to get them to come around. So if you think you're going to just have one argument and win them over, you're fooling yourself. You got to build a relationship with people. If you want to, handing out a track is not going to do it. You got to go be that person's friend. You got to go be a servant.
You have to
In
set an
fact,
example. I
yeah.
don't set an example in 60 seconds when I knock on your door, hand you a track, and leave. I'm not against if this
Yeah.
works. Like, sure, it could be used, but don't think that that's what's going to, win hearts and souls if you're not willing to be committed to somebody and involved in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, you're saying this thing's going to take work.
What a
Oh, yeah.
concept.
What an amazing concept. That's going to be something you're going to have to work at to see a harvest come forth. Um, this thing with treks, I never could do that. People say we're going to go down to the beach and witness. I ain't going there. That it's just not in my personality. Barry Phillips, who many people that watch this program know Barry, good friend of mine. Barry was actually, as a pastor, he was working part time in a music store and tells the story of a woman walking in the door and saying, "Here," and handing him and the music store owner a track each and turning around and walking out. And Barry was like, wow, I've been tracked. And he said, the more I thought about it, the madder I got. That this woman was not, I mean, maybe in her some kind of a warped way that was her way of caring, but that's all that she wanted to do. I got a friend of mine in Israel that owns a store, and I've been standing there when somebody'd walk in and hand the tract to the Jew and turn around and walk back out. And I said to him one day, I said, "What do you do with those?" He said, "Well, I've got a whole shelf full of them in the back. We normally throw them away once a year."
Why would you not? Kind of looked like they were meaningless to the person handing them out.
Hmm. So,
Yep.
why anyway? Why would you, or why would we? The most okay. You were there, I think, when I did this message. I just sent it to the not the editor, Alex, but the one that does the CD duplication. Okay, that's one thing we don't do any in house anymore. But I I did this message, life's most important question, which is found in the book of Acts. What must I do to be saved? In the end, guys, is there a question that's more important than that? Can you think of one, Jared?
No, that's pretty important.
And I mean, that's the only one you leave with,
Yep.
is what you found out regarding that. And so, why would I give the most the how do I again? I'm having a hard time wording this. Um, if that is the most important question, why would I interact with a total stranger about it?
There's an interesting thing. I'm gonna involve this here. Have you listened to some of Jordan Peterson's work, Jared?
Little
Okay.
bit. Yeah.
So he has people walk up and ask him about his faith. As soon as you're well known,
All the
right?
time.
So as soon as you're well known, people want to know things, particularly if you talk about philosophy, truth, wisdom, people are going to want to know that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it actually, he was willing to share, it kind of deeply offends him in some of the people ask him because he's like, do you have any idea? Do you at least understand what a deep personal question you're asking? Just flippantly? I'm like, ooh, what must I do to be saved is the most deep, intimate question you could ever ask. Asking someone, are you saved, is the most deep, internal question they could ever answer. Why would they share such a thing with a total stranger?
Hmm. Jared, you want to respond to that somehow? I'm processing it.
I'm kind of processing that too. I mean, you're gonna ask somebody really deep questions, they don't even know your name. It's not a good strategy.
Oh, okay, but let's go back, Jared. Let's go back 2.5
Yeah.
years. You
Okay.
didn't know me,
No.
okay? When you walked in with the long hair and the field jacket that day in Winchester, you didn't know me, but you were with a man that I guess you trusted him and saw that he trusted me.
Yep.
So we don't always need to be the person. There are numerous places in Scripture in which there was the connector. There was a book years ago about the tipping point, and somebody gave me the book. I never read it because I'm not into that stuff that you guys read. This guy, I can't even, what's the name of this guy you guys have been uh, something grass?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Neil in the grass. Okay, that's the only way I'm going to be able to figure that one out. Uh,
Poor guy.
the chances of me reading that, Alex, are how slim?
Yeah. My sister would say slim to none, and Slim just walked out the door.
Okay. So, you don't have to always be the person.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need to be the connector. But the job is still the same, guys, of looking for people that are seeking and then figuring out, okay, here's somebody that the Father has brought to me now, and I got this person over here, like, Alex or Jared or maybe Mike, or, I've got this person so I can connect them. So you don't have to know everything. People
No,
think that in order for a person to witness to someone, that they need to know everything.
Well, I mean, there's different parts of the body, and different parts of the body have different uses. So, I mean, it's kind of a team effort. You don't need to do it all on your own. You can't do everything. You can't do every single job with the hammer. You need to have a screwdriver in the belt. You need to have a wrench in the belt. So, I mean, you got to have other people around you. You can't do it solo.
Hmm. Alex said probably make a pretty good medical thing there, wouldn't
yes. Yes, I can definitely take the anything way too far, I'm sure.
it? Not everything is a scalpel.
You are the Abdullah Oblongata. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
So, okay, this whole thing I want to go back to of we see people in our society. Again, I think that there are people that they don't care. Okay, and that to me is the lie of evolution. Somebody was asking me about, speaking to youth, and so I'm teaching about purpose, and they're like, "Well, I mean, why is that? Why do they need that?" You know, a person that doesn't have any purpose in life, when your great 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 grandpa was a slime pond, and you're going nowhere, then who cares?
Exactly.
Really, who cares?
Nobody, the big thing right now is everybody always wants to be a social justice warrior. They want to be an advocate of something. But if you're nothing more than a slime pod, then you have no standard of morality or justice. So if you're going to say, I have my truth, you have your truth, and all this stuff, if there's nothing that's absolute or objective, then why are you so passionate about this or that? Like, unless there is a God, there is no purpose. Unless there is a God, there is no morality. Unless there is a God, there is no justice.
Hmm.
If you do not have any authority higher than yourself, you're lost
Yep.
in the worst way possible because
So,
you have nothing but your own flawed self to guide you.
Hmm.
so I asked a so-called atheist friend of mine, how do you um, how do you explain evil? Okay, if evolutionary thought is that, uh-oh, I got Jared going there. If evolution is that everything's getting better and better, which all I have to do, I've used it before, yes, I know, but in order to disprove that everything's getting better and better, I go to Walmart parking lot. Still believe, still believe totally that if Darwin had have gone to Walmart parking lot with the book in hand, he would have burned it in the parking lot. Okay? And we wouldn't be having this conversation. But with that being said, I think I lost my train of thought. How do we overcome this thing of if it's getting better and better, then how do you explain evil in the world? And how do you explain that there is this standard of good and evil? And this friend of mine said, well, that's based upon the seven universal truths. And I went, okay, and then you named out seven, which is basically based on I think, on the Noahide laws. But where did it all come from? So how do we, how do you explain to somebody? How do you get through to somebody? Something had to come from something.
Well, with what you're describing, when they want to say there is no truth, I just simply ask, is that true? because it can't be, because it doesn't work. It's a self-refuting statement. And you know, when 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 they do that whole seven truths thing, you got to ask them, well, is that just your truth or is that a absolute truth? Because if you're going to do this, what's true for me thing, what's true for you, then how can you apply that's true for me too? So
Alex,
their answers just don't make sense.
And how many people have to agree on something before it becomes morally right?
Oh, yeah.
do you have an answer to
How
that,
many
Jared? How
people,
many?
yeah. How many, and I was trying to look it up, um, because I didn't want to give an incorrect number. There were how many people? All right, yeah. They called it Heaven's Gate, right? When the Hale-Bopp comet came around.
Okay.
There was something like 39 people in that cult simultaneously agree. If I found the right one, I'll dig to it deeper. Something like 39 people simultaneously agreed that suicide was morally right. 39 people in the same room. Tragic. It was a horror. How many people had to agree? Who was that? Joel, what's his face, who led thousands of people
Oh, Jim
south?
Jones. Jim Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did it suddenly become morally right? Because suddenly we had a bunch of people all agreeing, oh no, he was crazy. Really? Everybody agreed? All the people gathered around there agreed what he was saying was true? But
Well,
then
look
if
at
you have something within you that objects to that, horribly, strongly objects that that cannot be good, such an action cannot be good, what is it within you that objects to that?
oh,
Maybe it's something, maybe there's just a touch of something pure within you. Maybe there's a spark of the divine in you that wants to lead you to being better.
hmm. Maybe his fingerprint is actually upon us.
Well,
Hmm.
Romans 2 tells us he writes his law on our hearts. So if you know something is wrong and you can't explain why that is, maybe that's the reason.
Hmm.
So that
But I'm aware
divine,
that others,
go ahead.
go ahead. I'm aware that others talk about, oh, it's just a psychological response to stimuli. But I'm
Just a social construct.
exactly, there you go. It's just a social construct. But how is it that tens of thousands of people across 6,000 years all arrive at a very similar social construct?
Well,
If
you know,
thousands of people, yeah, go ahead.
you explain when you don't want to accept this, you can explain it away however you want. Okay, I have a
Yep.
relative. I won't say I have very few relatives on my side since I'm an only child, but I have a relative that is has gone through most every school on the planet. Okay, all the big named schools many years ago, and actually went to, and interesting enough, a lot of these schools like Harvard and Yale and all these were biblical studies. These were divinity schools, and look what they turned out. They turned out atheists. And this relative of mine became one of those. But there's an issue in his life. It was called my grandmother, and he couldn't deal with it. He just could not figure out how to deal with this woman who had faith. And so he finally, one day he says, I finally figured it out that that some people just they're like crippled in life. And so they find God as something regarding that, like a defect. It's like, how do I get rid of this defect? And I thought about later, I thought I should have said, well, when you come to the place of figuring out that you're crippled, that's when you go get a crutch, which is what the smart person would do. But education, it's unfortunate, and the scripture talks about this over and over again in many different places. The more education a person has, a lot of times the farther away from God they get. So the smarter they think they are, the dumber they become.
Or because the higher education you get, the more questions you will ask. And just like Jared talked about people who walked away from God because they found Christians that couldn't answer their questions, and then they found atheists that could. Sure, the higher education you get, the more questions you will have. That's why you shouldn't be afraid to know what you know and to defend what you know. But so
Yeah.
yeah, in much knowledge there can be much. What is that verse? In much knowledge there can actually be much sorrow,
Yeah,
much grief.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was Cross-Examined put out some stats, and I think it was 75% of kids will abandon their faith by their first semester in college.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It is a staggering number of people. I have a good acquaintance of mine that had a sibling or yeah, one of their children that godly, absolutely, sent them to college, and within just a couple of months came home, on a break, and the parent said, "I don't even know who this person is."
Mhm.
Okay, now that doesn't mean we need to abandon, uh, you know, everything. I think it's because Christianity, for the most part, has um, came to that place of, well, we need to separate ourselves from all of this. So you guys have said, no, we're not going to separate ourselves from this. We're going to go in and figure it out and give an answer for the hope that is in us, which is a great scripture.
First Peter 3:15. But the rest of that is we're all supposed to do it with gentleness and respect.
Mhm. Yes, I found that a lot. Many times I found, we don't want to be one of those other people that hurt people by not being able to answer the questions that they have, by answering them in a harsh or judgmental manner.
Hmm.
If you're willing to ask me a question, I'll answer any question you've got on scripture. But I'm also fishing, all right? I find it very interesting that the first disciples that he recruited, they were fishermen.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're out there fishing? All right, you're sitting there in a boat and you've got your net spread out. You're not chasing the fish around the pond with a stick in your hand. You sit there with your net out.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have to do to catch the fish? Well, you got to be ready for a fish to come up to you
Hmm.
with your nets out,
Hmm.
ready. Some shark comes up, snapping and snarling at you. I put it back.
Hmm.
Okay. Somebody comes up, quarreling and yelling at me about my faith. We're good. Move on. You're not ready to talk. I'm here if
Yeah.
you want to talk, though.
Yeah. And the great thing to learn about that is that before you clean the fish, you get them in the boat. Okay. You don't clean
You're
them,
right.
well, I got to get that fish clean before I can get him on my hook. No, that's not the way it works. You catch the fish, you bring him in the boat. And yeah, I love that he used people who were, well, it says in the book of Acts, that the religious leaders were like, wait a minute, who are these people? They're just uneducated people of the land. But it says, but they knew that they had been with Yeshua. I find that a person with an experience is never at the mercy of a person with an argument.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
when I can explain to a person what my life, how my life changed in an instant, that's very difficult to argue against. So for me, I mean, I respect what you guys are doing with all this stuff the knowledge you have, because I think it's absolutely something that's needed in our day. But I think that putting the experience in front of all that, and then, in a way, catching that person, getting them on the hook, and then you use all of those things that you need to reel them into the boat.
Yes. There are answers here. You don't have to throw away your science. You don't have to throw away your intellect to follow your faith and to follow Yeshua. And if you'll let me tell you about it, I'll tell you about how he absolutely made a difference in your my life. And you might get to looking at me like, that guy's kind of weird. Maybe he's got something real going on in his life.
Mhm.
maybe I want to be a part of it.
Mm. That's, I mean, that's where it is in the end. It's being real. And,
Hmm.
going back to programs that we've done in the past, religion is phony. I find that the vast majority of people that I meet that have been around religion for an extended period of time are basically the compliant children.
Mm.
Okay, they don't ask questions.
Mm.
They've never questioned anything in their life. They've just kind of walked along through life, and however life takes them, well, that's the way it's going to go. And it's kind of, in a way, it's the dead fish swimming downstream. Uh, I think that the greatest people should be these that are wanting to argue with you and get in these discussions and heated discussions, and because those are the people that are searching for something. They
Yes,
want
they
more
are.
in life. Okay.
I love
And
the
we need,
people who are searching.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how to bring this all to a close. We've gone a lot of different directions here. Uh,
no
Well,
way.
that's what
Not
happens.
the
You have me
three of
talk
us.
more.
yeah, I know we got Jared talking a little bit more. He's doing good. Um, so how how do we put ourselves in a place, or should we even really try? I think we should try to. How do you kind of put yourself out there? Do you have to? I guess it would be you got to get out of yourself, right?
I would say you answer questions when they're asked and you answer them honestly.
Okay.
Uh, why are you not working this Saturday? It's Shabbat. What is that? Do you want to go out this Friday night? No, I'm at home. I'm opening up Shabbat with my family. What
Hmm.
does that mean? And you're kind of fishing with those answers. Somebody answer interested when I answer that? And then if they ask the next question, it's a hard question, you answer it too. You answer the uncomfortable questions about your faith. And you don't pretend to be. You don't go out, it's harsh, you don't go out there and pretend not to know God.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people out there pretending in churches, and then they leave and they pretend not to know God. Like, you be real. And you don't pretend you're a perfect person while you're around your fellow church members, whatever that church member situation looks like.
Hmm.
And you don't go away from there pretending that you're completely of the world and you don't go to church. You don't hide either one. I believe that this comes around to the point that we gather people in by being real and letting them know there's something different in our life. And when they want to know what that difference is, we tell them who that difference is.
So
For sure.
let me go ahead, Jared. You gotta.
I was just gonna say, I mean, most people can tell a fake. So if you got to be real.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me go around here real quick with a question I asked you guys yesterday. I think goes along with this, and we'll finish with this statement. Can a believer live like an agnostic? Is that what you're kind of describing to me there, Alex?
I believe, yes, yes, because I believe that people who will still struggle with the same concept that, Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about. I'm fine with this idea of an engineer God. And I use this example, but not okay with a personal God. I use this example of a clockmaker God, right?
Mm-hmm.
He made the universe, wound it up, he set it on the mantle, and he walked away from it. People, so-called Christians, whatever you would call it, believers, are okay with that. But they get mighty uncomfortable if you start saying, no, you have a gardener God
Uh,
who's directly involved in your life, planting, pruning. The pruning kind of hurts, okay? He's planting, he's pruning, he's watering. He is directly involved in your day-to-day life. The moment you start living your life as if you have a God who is a gardener directly tending to you, and not that he's a clockmaker who wound up the universe and walked away, you get a drastically different experience. I would say that the believers acting like agnostics, living like agnostics, are the ones who are living as if God is only uncertain about them. Like, meh, maybe that Mike Clayton guy preaches about me and maybe he doesn't. No. Maybe God notices when I show up to church and maybe he doesn't. God's not agnostic towards you, okay?
Okay. Jared?
For sure. Can people act agnostic when they're believers? Yes. Should they? No. It's always amazing to me how many people can quote John 3:16, but no one can quote Revelation 3:16, which is, you are neither hot or cold, so I spit you out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, God does not want us to be indifferent toward him. We need to be one or the other, not agnostic about him. But unfortunately, a lot of times we can be agnostic toward him.
Well, you might have, I don't know, Jared, you didn't, if you saw this or not, I posted something on Facebook yesterday. I can't remember exactly how I said it. I think it was, people treat God as a hobby
Mm-hmm.
and then expect him to treat them like a full-time job.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm gonna give the God a wave on on Saturday, on Shabbat, or on Sunday, or I'm gonna give him a wave in this or that. But I don't really want him to be involved in my life other than that, unless I've got an issue. And we expect him to just turn on a moment's notice and go, oh yeah, I mean, how would our wives feel if we treated them like that?
My wife would not be happy if she only saw me once a week, or if I only talked to her
30
for an
minutes.
hour a week. Yeah, exactly.
As you were zipping up your coat at 11:59.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Okay.
Jared, do you know the singer NF? You listen to NF?
I know who he is.
Okay. He's got this song, and this encapsulates exactly what we're talking here. One of the lyrics are, people fall asleep in the pews and then complain to God like he's sleeping on you. All right? Then they demand to look up at God and demand to know where he is, but it's hard to answer prayers when nobody's praying to you.
Wow. It's hard to answer prayers that nobody's praying.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what we should be doing is making him busy.
Yes. Yes.
Give him more to
I
do.
promise he's got the time. Okay.
He created it, I know, so he's got plenty. All right. Well, hey guys, this has gone a number of different places. I wasn't quite expecting it, but what is new in 101 episodes? That isn't. We'll see where we go again next week. So, and to everyone, it doesn't matter right now. You could have stumbled on this program. You're like, I'm an atheist. I'm an agnostic. I'm both. I'm mad. I don't care. It doesn't matter who you are. The scripture is still true that he says, I know the plans I have for you, says Adonai. Plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Don't be afraid to ask him the hard questions. He's the author of it anyway. Till next week, guys. See you then.
Till next week.
Who am I that you would know my name? What kind of love would walk through fire and meet me in the flame?